Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to DRS. It's the season finale of season 10. We're in round 8, and we're in Japan. What a finale it's going to be if this is the way we're going to start out. Very wet looking conditions. If the qualifying session is going to improve as time goes on, I think we're going to have a very quiet beginning to the session. Nobody's going to want to go out there and waste any time if the session's going to get better. But if we do see cars coming out, I think it's safe to assume they don't expect things to get better. Of course, there is only 15 drivers in the lineup, which means at the end of Q1 we're not going to lose anybody. 15 drivers do go through to Q2, so there we go. We do have one car coming out onto the circuit. What is that? That's an Alpine. Let's have a look. And there we go, some more action. Cars now starting to come out onto the circuit after the shell shock of seeing the raindrops in front of them. And then obviously what we would like to know, and we don't have any information on that, so if you're watching and you're in communication with any of the drivers, or if you are one of the drivers sitting in the pits, let me know about the weather going into the race. We can clearly see what's going on in Q1, but going on into qualifying, will it dry up? And are we expecting more of this in the race? It'll add a little bit of spice to what is already a very spicy finale. Of course, mathematically, we still have 7 drivers in this championship. Although it would take some very creative results for some of them to win, but I think the top 3 are pretty neck and neck. As far as that Drivers' Championship goes, Levy leading the way on 80 points, then Nick Gishin right behind 78, just 2 points, and then Boinkies on 74. Bigfoot not far behind 69, Panda 65, as is Quibus 65, and then Zero to Cool 56, still with that mathematical chance. He would have to win the race, and all of his championship opponents would not be able to score a point. So for Zero to Cool, it would take something very special, but still 6 drivers firmly in this championship. And all it takes is a mistake from the man leading the championship, and all of a sudden things are blown wide open. Have a retirement, Nick Gishin. Wonder if that is him just saying, no need to settle up. We'll go out in Q2, no need to take a risk. Obviously the biggest risk in qualifying, especially in these conditions, you go off, you break a wheel, damage that car badly, you're not going to take any further part in qualifying, and you're going to start the race from P15. Suzuka can also be a challenging circuit to overtake on, so I don't think you want to start from the rear of the field. In some parts this track's still very narrow. One of the classic circuits in F1. It's held many finale to a season. Obviously it's been replaced as the final race of the season, but late 80s, early 90s, this was the destination for the final race of the season. And if you know a little about F1 history, you'll know that the 89 championship and the 1990 championship both ended in Suzuka, separated by just 1 point. Obviously that was courtesy of Alain Prost taking out Ayrton Senna in 1989 and therefore holding on to his 1-point lead as both drivers retired. And then the very next year, Senna getting his own back and taking Prost out in turn 1. Zero to cool. Currently the fastest man out on circuit, Arno Gijs P2 and then Ariamondi P3. Will the fourth driver to have set a lap time? These lap times, well, they're in wet conditions, so I don't know how much we can read into them. We might have a completely bone dry Q3 and then this is not going to be very relevant at all. But if there is any wet running in the race, this practice could be crucial. See, a few people have already joined the stream to watch the final race of the season. Remember, 7 drivers can still mathematically win this championship. 6 of them more likely than the other. But we have to count all 7. And then obviously 2 teams still in the running for the Constructors' Championship. As far as that Constructors' Championship, there we go. I said just the 2 teams, Alpine and Alfa Romeo, split by 11 points. Things getting a little messy. Haas coming out of the pits, Arno Gijs heading into turn 1, and on a circuit like this, in these conditions, it's difficult to get out of the way at times. So busy trying to keep the car on track that sometimes you forget to check your mirrors. Seems like we've had a car join the lobby, so we might be up to 16 runners. Still got 10.5 minutes remaining in the session, so lots of time to go. Stoffel over the line, puts himself up into P4. This is the Red Bull of Top Gun. Currently no lap time set. Heads into the final chicane, the famous final chicane. Ooh, and almost loses it on the pit entry. Decides not to set a lap time. This is Nam Assassin, just the one Ferrari out on track today. Quibus goes P1, 43.2. These times are coming down. Wonder if that's track improvement or if that's just driver improvement. Obviously the drivers will get faster lap by lap as they get used to the conditions. And what we see in qualifying in the rain sometimes is guys will just fuel up and do 2 or 3 laps at a time. Not necessarily out lap, fast lap, in lap. Ooh, there we go. Just confirmation from Nick. Did not retire voluntarily. He actually hit a wall on the outlap. So Nick Gishin, he's going to start from the rear of the field. That's the man in P2 in the championship, just 2 points behind your leader, Levy. This is Dan Ritfeld in the Haas. No lap time from him. Lots of drivers with no lap time. Maybe just waiting for the latter stages of the session. Maybe the conditions will get better. But if Nick is still there in the comment section, let me know about the weather. Just so I have some sort of an idea. Is it going to rain in the race? Is it going to get dry as we go further into qualifying Q2, Q3? This is the fastest man on circuit. Williams driver. One of 2 Williams here tonight. We have gone up to 16 drivers. I believe that was Zubair. We were waiting for Zubair. There he is. So there's 2 Williams present this evening. Grievous is also retired from the session. He's done enough. Not really sure what the weather's going to hold. So 0 to pool. The Alfa Romeo. Such a technical race circuit and so much more difficult in the rain. Of course, when you're out there by yourself setting a quick lap, you're in free air, got the track to yourself, or at least that section of the track. But once you're on lap 1 and you've got cars all around you, cars behind you, cars ahead of you, and you're in these sort of conditions, things can get messy very quickly. We've seen Suzuka lap 1 get messy, and that was in dry conditions. Of course, if you watched the race here on NFR last night, you would have seen it was safety car filled. Hopefully we don't get too much of that tonight. Good evening in the comment section to more of these. Familiar name on a Thursday night. Boinkies has come into the pits after that lap time, and I wouldn't be surprised if he stays there for the remainder of the session. I don't think we're going to see too many cars out on track taking risks if it's unnecessary. Of course, we've gone up to 16 drivers, but we're still not going to have any drivers eliminated at the end of the session. It'll just be Nick Gishin, but he retired due to terminal damage on the car, so he's going to be starting from P16 on the grid. Welcome as well to David in the comment section. Great to have you here. Great to have all the viewers here. We've got a few viewers watching. It's only Q1. With every session that progresses, things get that much more important, that there's that much more to play for. Obviously at the end of Q1 we're going to go through with 15 drivers. Nick Gishin's going to be left behind as a result of his retirement, but Q2 will be far more important. At the end of Q2 we will lose 5 drivers, and then we'll go to Q3 for a 10 car shootout for pole position to set the grid for the Japanese Grand Prix. Of course, this circuit owned by Honda. We almost got a second Japanese Grand Prix in the early 2000s when Toyota thought Honda owns a track, we need a track. Toyota went and bought Fuji Speedway with the intention of getting it on the F1 calendar, but those plans were scrubbed away when Toyota dropped out of Formula 1 very suddenly. The last man to join the lobby, Zubair, is finishing off an outlap, going to start his first time lap of the evening. It's just right on board with the Williams here for the first couple of corners, just so you can see the undulation. It's a double right-hander, but the track just drops away from you, and if you're not in the right part of the circuit, you just find yourself trying to catch up with the car through that corner. You understeer horribly, and in the early stages that's not what you're going to want. The field's going to be very close together, and if you had a bad turn 1, you're going to lose a whole lot of positions. This is your championship leader. He's leading the championship by just the 2 points. His nearest competitor is out of qualifying and will start from the rear of the field. So that's a good start for Levy's evening. Was third in the championship, also not far behind, just 6 points behind is the man on provisional pole, Boinkies. So everything's still wide open, don't know who's going to win this championship. It's going to come down to this final race. The Williams of Zubair trying to get around for his first timed lap. Just wants to get himself on the board. Of course, he will still be able to go through without a lap time. Just want to register that first time. He's going to go over the line. Puts himself up into P11. It's a 1:45.8. We know there's still a lot of time to come, and I don't think Zubair would have been pushing on his absolute ultimate. That was his first timed lap, and his first timed lap in these conditions, so he might have just been tiptoeing a little bit on the throttle. First you've got to figure out where the limit is before you can push to the limit. So the first few laps might just be a little tentative. Because at any point that car could just push a little bit too hard, and that car could just reject your inputs and send you backwards into a wall. Maybe taking a bit of grass. This is Fuster, currently in P8, he's on an outlap. Zubair still out on track. And that's just confirmation that the weather conditions are pretty rough. Nobody gambling on the intermediate, everybody out there on the wets. These are difficult conditions, but the amount of laps these guys are doing suggests to me that we're going to get more of this in Q2. If we're having a dry Q2, I don't think anyone would be spending time on this racetrack. If there is the risk of rain in the race, I don't have confirmation if there will be rain or there won't be rain. Apparently the driver's also getting a few mixed signals from their little weather report, so we're gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to wait until the race to see Levy coming into the pits. You see that much shortened pit lane from the early 90s. The Suzuka pit entry used to be a lot longer. Much better pit entry it is these days. So Lebby in the pits, Fuster out on track, Zubair out on track, Cowboy out on track. The rest of the field has finished their session. Lebby has taken the checkered flag, so now we're just waiting for Fuster, Zubair and Cowboy to finish off their qualifying. I wonder if Zubair is just going to peel off into the pits, or if he's got an improvement. Seems to have used all his battery, so I think this might be one more timed lap. No, it's coming into the pits. For a second there, I thought he was going to hit the pit wall. So to the last man on circuit, and in fact he's taken the checkered flag. So session has come to an end. Now we will continue into Q2, hopefully with 15 drivers. Not quite sure of the method, how this game works things out sometimes. We've seen sometimes we do have 10 drivers and then we arrive at Q3 with only 9. So hopefully we do have a full field of 15 going into Q2. Just waiting now for the clock to tick down. We can progress to the next session. There we go, your results for Q1. Boinkies leading the field so far this evening, then Lebby P2, Kobus 3, Kevin P4, then we've got Zero to Cool, Dan Ritfeld, Arno Goos, Fuster, Aria Mondi, and Nam Assassin making up the top 10. Also going through to Q2, Stoffel, Zubair, Top Gun, Cowboy, and Will. Those are P11 down through P15, and then unfortunately for Nick Geshen, wasn't able to get a lap time on the board. And he will be the only driver not going forward in qualifying. Well, the weather conditions have most certainly not changed. It's a far more important session. There we go. We do have a full field of 15 drivers for Q2, so that's good news. So much more to play for in this session. We will lose 5 of these drivers. And in these conditions, sometimes you'll find some very quick drivers outside of that top 10. For the remainder of qualifying, Nick will be reduced to a spectator. Gives him some extra time to think about what he's going to do. But when you don't know if the start of the race is going to be wet, if it's going to be dry, then you're just trying to think of all sorts of scenarios in your head. A lot of cars already on an outlap. Want to get on with things. Obviously, we spoke about the difference between Q1 and Q2. We did not have a full lobby, so there wasn't much at risk in Q1. But now in Q2, if you do get a few invalidated laps, can't get that time on the board, you just make a bad mistake and you don't get a good lap time, we could have some of these championship contenders outside of the top 10. And an interesting field in Q3. Just to bring up the championship points again, obviously very close together in this championship. Lebby, Nick Geshen, Boinkies, Big Toe, Panda, Quibus, and even Zero to Cool, if you want to go a little extreme, can all take this championship this evening. As far as the teams go, it's all Alpine and Alfa Romeo. Bear starts a quick lap. Will has already started his quick lap. Where is he? He's currently in sector 1. Such a difficult racetrack to stitch the entire lap together. You could get a brilliant sector 1, sector 2, mess it all up in sector 3, or any combination of those. To be able to stitch this whole thing together. It's such a complex lap. It's got slow speed corners, fast speed corners, and these are not the optimal conditions on any racetrack, but especially Suzuka. Let's ride with the Alpha Tauri for a minute. This is Stoffel He has taken a roll of the dice that no one else has taken. He's on the intermediate. As soon as he goes over the line to put that first lap time in, we'll know if the roll of the dice worked or if it didn't. And if it didn't at all, then we'll see him peeling into the pits. This is the AlphaTauri, the only car on the intermediate compound. Everybody else still on the full wets. Let's see. The AlphaTauri is going to come over the line any moment now. Dan Rickwell, first man over the line, 144.5. Then 0 to cruise, 42.4. Then, well, times are coming in thick and fast. Stoffel, say 46.1. Doesn't suggest to me just yet that that tyre is where it needs to be. It may still be coming down a little bit too hard for that intermediate compound. I wonder if we'll just see Stoffel continue, do a few more laps, try get used to the intermediate, make it work for him, or we'll see him come straight into the pits because he's surely on the wrong tyre. So there, off the circuit, on the grass, look at that, the Alfa Romeos. That's exactly how they want things to go. P1, P2, and they're number 2. They're in the Constructors' Championship, so that would be the best possible result. Of course, finish 1-2, you get 44 points. If one of those teammates is able to get the fastest lap. No, actually, I don't think the fastest lap goes to the constructor, it only goes to the driver. So I think maximum points the team can get is 44 points. That's obviously P1, P2. AlphaTauri of Will, we're riding on board with him now, his teammate in P9. He chose to go out on the Inter and he's not coming into the pit, so he is doing a few laps. And look at that, that's much better. It's a 140, is that a 143.5, puts him up into P4. He's the only driver on intermediate, so I wonder if that's going to raise an eyebrow or two. Maybe we're going to see a few more drivers peel into the pits, put on the Inter. Stoffel is able to make it work. He is falling down the order slightly now, down into P6. So I think the wet tyre is still the faster tyre. This track could come to the intermediates, and if you're on the right part of the racetrack at the right time, you could find yourself a very favourable position in that timing sheet. Obviously this is not going to set your final grid. This is just going to eliminate the slowest 5 drivers so that we go into Q3 for a final top 10 shootout. And Q3 is the one that decides pole position. Kev over the line, quickest man so far this evening, almost now into the 41s. 42.0, goes 3/10 faster, then 0 to cool. The Alfa Romeo is sitting pretty, P1, P2, now P2, P4. That time's coming in thick and fast. And if the conditions are changing, if they are improving, then we're going to see these lap times come down. Kev, the fastest man on track. Fast driver. At the moment, the driver's at serious risk. That would be your Q1 leader, that was Boinkies. He was the fastest driver at the end of Q1. He finds himself outside the top 10 now. P11, his teammate just behind him in P12. Those 2 lap times also very close. The Williams have been so close this season. 44.3, 44. Well, was a 43. It was a 44.3, 44.4. But Zubair's gone over the line and he's improved on that. He's gone into the 43s now, 43.2. Puts himself up into P6. And out of the danger zone. Now in the danger zone. Will, 144.3. It's only good enough for P11. Needs to find an improvement. Boinkies, Dan Rittveld, Cowboy. All at risk. And then Arno Goos also at risk, but he has not set a lap time yet, so we haven't seen his pace. And there we go, we got quite the show there. See that? A little bit of sideways action just gets the heart pumping. Don't think anyone's asleep in these conditions, but if you are in a bit of a comfort zone, that just pulls you out of it, wakes you up, slaps you around a little bit and tells you to get on with it. Of course, DRS will be returning with season 11, and that is going to be on, I believe, F124. I seem to slide around a lot more on that game. We get used to seeing a lot more of that. Of course, these are wet conditions. F124 slides in dry conditions. I wouldn't want to see F124 in these conditions. Of course, this is the final race on the channel. I believe that will be on F123. The other two leagues we're commentating on have moved to the 24 format. And DRS will follow suit when season 11 returns. But that will be in a few weeks' time. And tonight's the one that counts. These guys want the championship. One final goodbye to the game. Here it's cool, he's going to go over the line now. Best time is at 42.1. He's definitely safe. But I think some of these drivers might be expecting this weather in the race, because a lot of guys are doing lap times. And sometimes what you see in these conditions is guys just a little bit reluctant to get out on track if it's not completely necessary. But we've only got 5 cars in the pits, everybody else out on track. This is Boinkies. He's gone with the intermediate compound. It's a new set of intermediates. See what he chooses to do. He might peel off into the pits, might carry on with the lap. Does carry on with the lap. So he believes he can make those inters work. Up the road from him also on the inter is Stoffel 143.5. And then the highest inter runner, that's Zubair in P8. Definitely different strategies at play. Some guys trying the inter, some guys still firmly on the wet. This is Stoffel, he's about to go over the line. And that is a very decent lap time on the intermediate tyre. That's a 42.1. And I think that's going to invite a lot more drivers to jump onto the inter. Of course, conditions do seem to be improving, and there's only 2 minutes to go. That might mean we have a much better race circuit in Q3. Doubt we'll have a dry race circuit in Q3. Drivers at risk. Cowboy P15, I think he's already eliminated from the session, so he will be out. Dan Rittveld at risk. Boinkies at risk. Ariamondi at risk. Top Gun P11, he's also retired. Dan Rittveld Goes up into the 43s, puts himself up into P8. That means Fuster now joins the cars at risk. Evening to Johnny in the comment section. Yes, we are moving to F124. Season just started a little bit out of sync, and it meant that the last 2 rounds were going to overlap with the new game, but we decided to finish the season on the same game because it's only fair. But in approximately 2 or 3 weeks, when DRS returns with season 11, that will definitely be on the new game. Ariamondi currently P14, at serious risk of getting left behind in qualifying. Really want to start inside that top 10 for an important Grand Prix like this. Remember, still 7 drivers could potentially win this championship. And there's still 2 teams that could potentially win this Constructors, so a lot to play for in the finale. The man in P2 in the championship, he's going to start from P16 on the grid. But at Suzuka, you can expect penalties, you can expect safety cars. So I don't think any of the drivers will be thinking that their strategy is going to go exactly according to plan. Need to have a few backup plans, not as many as Ferrari. Don't want to hear anybody talking about plan E or plan G. No idea how those drivers remember all the different plans. And Boinkies, he's left it late, but he's gone back to the top of the session. That's where he was at the end of Q1. That's where he's going to be at the end of Q2. Don't think there's anyone else on track that's still looking for an improvement. There's Ariamondi, currently P14. He has not crossed the checker flag just yet. Serious risk of being eliminated. He's going to have to find himself, not that much really, if he can find himself 3/10, he will book his place in Q3. Time's very close just ahead of him. Doesn't need to be a big improvement. He peels into the pits, and that means there was no improvement on the cards. So everybody else out on track has taken the checker flag. That means that this session of qualifying is over. Dan Rietveld, Fuster, Top Gun, Ariamondi and Cowboy have been eliminated. So there we go, there are your official results for Q2. Boinky's leading the field yet again as he did in Q1. Then we've got Kev P2, Zeratool P3, Stoffel P4. They're followed by Arnachos, Kurbis, Sube, Namassassin, Lebby and Will getting himself into the top 10. Eliminated from the session, Dan Rietveld, Fuster, Top Gun, Ariamondi and Cowboy. And if you look at that, you'll see Dan Rietveld was eliminated because of 0.05 of a second. We now go into Q3, and if you were hoping for the conditions to get better, they don't look that much better, do they? We're going to see if the cars come out on wets or if they come out on inters. judging by that rain, I think the wet tyre is the one to go with. We did see the Inter starting to improve at the end of Q2. We had a quiet racetrack, and now all of a sudden we're starting to see some action. This is the session that counts. This is the session that will determine where you start in that top 10. Boinkies, he was leader at the end of Q1, leader at the end of Q2, but that's not what's going to put you on pole position. The only thing that puts you on pole position is being the leader at the end of Q3. Let me know in the comment section, do you have any predictions for pole position? I think the times are going to be really difficult to guess, but you can at least give me the positions. What do you think? P1, P2, P3? Or who do you think is going to be on the front row? Of course, the man that leads the championship, he's on an outlap. That is Levy. And that Alfa Romeo team also gunning for the constructors. Alfa Romeo 136, Alpine 147. Only have one Alpine up here in the top 5. So Alfa Romeo could definitely take the Constructors' Championship. It all just depends if they can get the right result in this race. A 1-2 would be preferable. This is Kurbis. He was one of the first drivers out on track. This was a driver that squeezed into Q3 in P10. I'd like to be a little higher than Q10, than P10 here in Q3. It's actually a bit of a horrible place to start, P10. Because you're really right in the middle of the action. You're at the front, right at the front, and there's chaos behind you. Sometimes you don't even know there was chaos behind you. If you're right at the back, you get to see the chaos. And if you're able to maneuver that car, and if you have a bit of luck, you'll get through that chaos with your front wing and have a brilliant start to the race. But sometimes when you're in that midfield and there is chaos, you're almost guaranteed to be part of it. We ride with the Aston Martin. Appears, let's just bring up confirmation there on your tyre screen, but it appears it's a bit of a mix. 4 drivers on the wet, 6 drivers on the Inter. So I don't think anybody's quite sure what tyre they should be on. Zuberger's over the line, first lap time in Q3, it's a 42.7. And he's been beaten immediately by his teammate, and then Kev comes in to take those Williams out of P1 and P2. Kurbis slots himself into P3, these times coming in pretty close at the moment. 0 to cool now, P3. Zarno Khoos. Cam Assassin has got his first lap time in, a 1:44.0. If you look at that, it suggests that the Inter is the right tyre to be on, because the top 4 drivers are all on the intermediate compound. So I wonder if these track conditions have now just started to fall away from the wets. Fastest time by a driver on the wets is Kurbis. That is a 42.3. Fastest time in the session, 40.0. We've had a crash. It's a big crash. And it's an important crash. It's the championship leaders. It's the Alpine. He was the only Alpine up in the top 10, and he's had a nasty one. Arno Goos out of qualifying, and he's going to start no higher than P10 in the race a little later on. Do apologise to Arno Goos if he was listening to the commentary and then he just don't ride on board with me and then he crashed. Some drivers don't like it. Just that little bit of extra pressure. Levy through Spoon. Onto the incredibly long, not so straight. That corner used to be really challenging back in the day. Now the guys just fly through it on full throttle. This is Levy. Will he peel off into the pits or will he go around for another lap? He does go around for another lap. Is there an improvement? Current best was a 40 point. There we go. Goes a 40.4. Quickest lap of the evening so far. Top 4 drivers are still all on intermediates. Fastest wet runner is Kobus in P5, and I'm almost sure everyone will come out for that second stint on a set of intermediates. I think those results are showing. The Inter's doing 140s, the wet's doing 42s. Can just see there Kobus sitting in the pits, but you can see his tyres changed. He switched on to the intermediates. I think everyone is in the pits right now. Stoffel's on an out lap. Levy on a time lap. We saw him go around yet again. Might just be having an in lap because he's already had the 2 quick laps. Welcome to Louis in the comment section. Happy birthday to who? I'm not sure. Let me know. Is that a driver? Is that someone in the comment section? Whoever it is, happy birthday from NFR. Levy still leads the way. This is the man leading the championship. So this is exactly where he needs to be. Only leads the championship by 2 points, so it is by no means a comfortable lead. He wants to be at the top of the field throughout. Hopefully for him, he would start in P1 and finish in P1, but I think the race is going to be a little bit more complicated than that. Thanks for that. That is driver currently in P5 for Aston Martin, Kobus. It's your mom's birthday. Hope you wished your mom happy birthday already. In case you haven't, happy birthday from NFR. Levy's still the fastest car. He remains in the pits. Kev P2, 0 to cool in the pits. We have a whole lot of cars out on outlaps. Boinkies, Kobus, Sugair, Assassin, and Will. I think Stoffel is the only driver currently on a timed lap. He's going through that final chicane now. Hasn't set a lap time yet. Doesn't peel into the pits, so this will be his first lap time. And it's good enough for P4. That's a good position for the AlphaTauri, 141.2. Of course, if you do want to take pole position, you're going to have an absolute minimum in the 140s. 141 is not going to be good enough. This is the AlphaTauri. Will has set the 1 lap, but I don't think that was a... I think that was a lap with a bit of a mistake, or a lap with a lot of backing off. It was a 150.4. I think this will be his first proper attempt at a lap time. Championship leader emerges from the pits, currently on provisional pole, goes out to defend that lap. goes out to move the goalpost a little bit more. Kev over the line, currently in P2, 0 to cool P3. Stoffel got that lap in, went up into P4. Remember, we just had the one Alpine in the top 10, and that Alpine has since retired. That was Arno Goos on his first attempt. Tried that on the wet tyre. Since then, everybody has gone over to the intermediate. So we've already had two very quick drivers making mistakes in the qualifying sessions. Arno Goos taking no further part, and in the very early stages, runner-up in the championship, retiring on his outlap. In fact, I think Arno Goos also retired on his outlap. Mentioned earlier how close the Williams are, and as I mentioned it, Boinkies goes to P2. He goes into the 140s. It's a 140.6, not quite good enough for provisional pole. In fact, it's a 140.8, good enough for the first row of the grid, not good enough for provisional pole, and by no means is it a comfortable P2. Kev behind him by 4 thousandths of a second in P3. Just incredible that over such an insane lap, under such insane conditions, these guys are able to get 4 thousandths of a second in between each other. Kev about to go over the line. Still looking for an improvement, wants to get him up onto that front row. If you're on the front row heading into turn 1, anything is possible. And it's really where you want to be. You want to be in that midfield. Things can get really hairy. Find yourself in a sticky situation, and then you have to go around this entire Suzuka circuit with a broken wing, recover back to the pits. Worst possible start for the race. We've got is that a Mercedes? No, it's not. I always get confused between the two. That's an Aston Martin facing the wrong way. That is Kurbis, P7, and he is retired from the session, so he won't start any higher than P7. Will is also retired from the session. Nam Assassin, currently in P9, he's still out on track. Boinkies has gone fastest, so he really likes these conditions, or he likes this track, or he likes a combination of the two. He led Q1, he led Q2, and now provisional pole position. A lot of cars have already taken the checkered flag, but we still have Kev out on circuit. We still have championship leader out on circuit. Levy's about to go over the line. Is he able to take pole position back? We'll soon find out. No, he's not. Takes the checkered flag. It's a 140.1. Stays on the front row. He will join Boinkies on that front row. Is there anyone who can still improve? Just joined Kev in time to go over the line, and he did improve up into P3. So there are your official results for Q3, the final session in qualifying. Boinkies takes pole position. He was ahead in Q3, he was ahead in Q2, and he's ahead in the most important session, but only by 5 hundredths. Extremely close. On the second row, we've got Kev and Stoffel, then 0 to Cool and Zubair in P5 and 6, Nam Assassin 7 and 8, Will P9, and Ariam Mondi will start from P10 without having set a lap time. Of course, now we will head off straight into the race. Guys will have a few seconds really just to finish it. Ooh, and they'll be relieved by that. Blue skies, we can see blue skies. There is a bit of cloud about, but these are the best conditions we've seen all evening. Obviously, while we're looking at the pits, these drivers are sitting in their grid slots doing their final strategy adjustments, choosing what tyre to start the race on, what tyre you intend on finishing the race on. Drivers will also have a much better idea than I do of what's going to happen in the race, weather-wise. There is definitely blue skies, but there is definitely clouds. So those clouds could start to build up and we could start having rain midway through the race or at the very end. When we get the 5 red lights, they'll all go out and we'll be on our way. It's going to be a Williams versus an Alfa Romeo into turn 1. Hopefully it's not a messy turn 1. And we already have an AlphaTauri looking to make up positions. Boinkies leads the way from Kev. Levy has lost the position. He's gone down into P3. Then we've got Stoffel P4. That was the AlphaTauri we saw going for a move there at the cool P5. We've got a caution on lap 1. Hopefully that's all it is. Nick Gishin picks up a 5-second penalty for a severe collision with what I can only assume was Fuster because he's retired from this race. And I believe we're under safety car. And there we go. There's the confirmation. We're under safety car conditions. Last night we had safety car conditions on lap 1. Tonight we have safety car conditions on lap 1. And that's over 2 different games. It is something that can be expected here in Suzuka. It's no surprise to get a safety car early on when everything at the front is frantic. Everybody's looking to make up positions. Obviously in the early stages no gaps have formed. Everybody's still so close together. 2 or 3 cars run wide. You can pick up so many positions in just one corner. That becomes a lot more difficult as the race goes on and gaps begin to form. So everybody can be a little bit over eager on lap 1. And sometimes that just leads to a horrible mistake that makes your race even that much more difficult. For Nick Gishin, he was going to be starting from the rear of the field, which was already going to be a very difficult task for him going into Suzuka. Now he's had that collision on lap 1, which means he's also got a 5-second penalty next to his name, and that's not going to help him at all. Of course, if you haven't spent too much time on the F124 game, I should probably warn you that those 5-second penalties, they're no longer 5-second penalties. They're now 6-second penalties, 10-second penalties. So you don't want to get one of those. Also, speeding into the pit lane with 10 seconds now on the new game. Something to bear in mind for all of those drivers. Of course, what we saw last night was several safety cars, but importantly, one of those safety cars was very late in the race, and anybody that had a penalty next to their name really fell down the order. Nick Gishin has been able to get rid of that 5-second penalty because he went into the pits, served his 5-second penalty, and got back underway. Damage will be minimized because he'll be able to join at the back of that queue with any damage he may have had now fixed with a fresh set of tires. Not that the fresh set of tires is going to help him much. Everybody's got a fresh set of tires. Nobody even quite got going before that safety car came out. Tires probably weren't even up to temperature yet. Here we go, just the one stop. Nick Gishin, the only driver who has visited the pits yet. And quite an even mix of the tires. Just one driver choosing to start on the hard compound, and that is Arne Goos. Going for something different, looking to go deeper into this race than anyone else. There are a few people watching, and if you've just joined us, you haven't missed much. We had a safety car activated on lap 1. We're now on lap 2 of the race. Championship leader is currently in P3, that is Levy. They're not far behind in the championship. Nick Gishen just 2 points behind, but he finds himself down in P15 and out of the points. And then the man currently P3 in the championship, well, he leads the way. That's how you want to end things off. If you have an okay season, but you leave your best race for the last race. And Boinkies, well, he topped every session, and now he leads the race. I don't think he could ask for much better. Of course, something we've introduced at NFR is we're trying to get more of the drivers in after the race for an interview. Just ask them how the race went on, what they thought of it. We'd like to get the top 3 drivers, as well as the driver of the day, into the comms box after the race. So if you're in the top 3, if you're the driver of the day, remember, head off to the NFR Discord server and join the cooldown room. And then from there, I'll bring you into the comms box. Safety car seems to have pulled off into the distance. No, he hasn't. There he is. There we go. Race will resume. Safety car is in this lap. Immediately, Boinkies backs that field up. Lets the safety car go off into the distance. You want him to enter the pit lane and get out of the way. Then Boinkies will become the temporary safety car. He takes the responsibility of leading this field, and he decides when to go. And I think, is he holding them up right? Yes, he is. Look at that. Really backed them up. Hopefully no illegal overtakes at the start of the race. So easy to do, especially when you get backed up in such a fashion. Boinkies leads from Kev, Stoffel P3, and Levy's actually lost another position. He's down to P4. Lost the position at the start of the race, lost the position at the restart, and he'll be looking to correct that quickly. He's the championship leader, but not by much. And his main competitor in this race at this stage is leading the race. His other competitor sitting outside the points. We've had our second retirement, that is Dan Ritfeldt, and we have our second safety car. We are under safety car conditions for the second time in this race on lap 4 of 27. Things continue this way. It's going to be a real long race. So we've lost 2 drivers already. Fuster and Dan Ritfeldt. Not only failing to finish the race, failing to get to lap 5. Obviously the safety cars in the very early stages of the race, they're a little bit annoying, because what happens is you have a safety car in the middle of the race, at the end of the race can really spice things up. When you have a safety car right in the beginning, everybody's just going to stay out, hold on to track position. You've got fresh tyres, there's no need to come in, so it really just slows the race down for 2 or 3 laps. Guys don't really benefit from it, and as I say, that Stoffel has come into the pits under safety car. Wonder if he had some sort of damage, or if he's just thought of a new strategy. Those cars were already relatively close together from the last safety car, which means when he does come out of the pits, he's going to have lost a whole lot of position. Stoffel still in the pits. Cowboy leaves the pits, Nick Gishin leaves the pits, and Stoffel is back on track. All three of those cars I just mentioned, they've come back out onto the track on a hard set of tyres. Now either they're going to take those tyres right to the end, which would be a bit of a stretch, or they're hoping for another safety car towards the end of the race and just come in, throw on a set of softs and finish the race that way. Second safety car of the evening. What this does do is it extends the life of those tyres a little bit. You can go a little bit deeper into the race because now you've been spending so much time behind the safety car. You haven't really woken those tyres up. Those tyres haven't been operating at the temperature they'd like to. And if you know a little bit how these F1 tyres work, when they're not in their operating temperature, they can be quite useless. So Boinkies is going to have his third start in 6 laps. He was able to hold on to the lead at the start, he was able to hold on to the lead at the first restart, but he's going to have to do it all over again at the second restart. Seems like the entire field is together, but the safety car is going to have one more lap. That effectively means we've spent the first 6 laps of this race behind a safety car. Luckily we didn't have a formation lap, or the guys would be getting very tired of driving around at this speed. When we do get the restart, Boinkies will lead the way, Kev will be P2, that's the same order we had for the first restart. Levy will start from P3. And he'll have his teammate beside him. See the Alfa Romeos at this time, they're in a pretty strong position to take the Constructors' Championship. Boinkies won't be thinking about the Constructors' Championship, he'll be thinking of ending this race where he is now. He'd love for the checkered flag to fall this very moment, but unfortunately for him, still 20 laps to go. He's a quick driver, but so is everyone else in the field. Being in the lead won't be of too much comfort to him. He's going to know he's going to have a whole bunch of angry cars behind him at the restart. Some of these guys will be getting frustrated driving around at this speed, and then what happens is when you do get released, just go a little crazy, forget what you're doing, find yourself in the wall. And I think that's how we got the second safety car. Somebody got too excited on the restart, activated the second one before we could get a complete lap in. Safety car will be in at the end of this lap, and hopefully we won't be seeing the safety car at least until the end of the race. Hopefully we won't be seeing him at all. Boinkies will now again back up the field. We saw on that last restart he left it right to the end. Will he do the same thing, or will he go early? go. It seems like it's going to be quite a simple restart. Hopefully everybody will go into turn 1 in single file. You're not going to get any incidents leading to a third safety car. Boinkies leads the way from Kev. Kev right on his gearbox. Then we have the two Alfa Romeos split by 1.2 seconds. Zero to Cool coming under pressure from Quibus and Ariamondi. Subir then just ahead of Namassassin, Will P9 and Ariamondi making up the top 10. Now the drivers have quite a split on the tyres. We have 4 drivers on the hard compound, 3 drivers on the soft compound and 6 drivers on the medium. So pretty even spread. Actually 4 drivers on the softs. Didn't see Top Gun there. Top Gun at the rear of the field in the Red Bull, where no Red Bull should be. Unless that's the number 11 Red Bull, then it's totally understandable. Boinkies leads the way, Kev P2. And while these two tussle for the lead, they're going to bring the two Alfa Romeos into this race. Levy, championship leader, currently in P3. His nearest competitor in the championship, out of the points in P11. Next best is Boinkies, and he's leading the race. This is all he can do, is win the race and hope that the results behind him go his way. It's a 2-step plan for Boinkies to win this championship, and he's already doing the first step. He's in the lead, he can't control the second step. You'll be keeping an eye on Levy. You'll be able to see him in P3. And you would be so relieved to see that Aston Martin, that Alfa Romeo rather, start to lose positions. The second Williams, Zubair, currently in P7. His teammate up in the lead. We have Namassassin P8, Ariamondi, and Nick Ishin has broken into the points. He's now in P10, so his climb has officially started. Two seconds adrift from Ariamondi, so he's going to have some... Ooh, we've just caught that in time for the incident, and Boinkies, that is your race leader, your pole sitter. He's had an incident, and Boinkies down into P6, just ahead of his teammate. I wonder if Zubair is going to come at him. And he will. So Zubair goes ahead of his teammate, and Boinkies, just like that, goes from the lead of the race down to P7 on a fresh set of softs. He would have been wanting to be at the front, stretching a lead on those softs. Instead, he now finds himself right in the middle of the pack, P7 from 14 drivers. And he's going to have to do something special to come back into this race. Championship leader, on the other hand, well, that's where he wants to be. He's leading the race. Quibus, now the man in P2 as a result of that incident. So it's Alfa Romeo, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo Alpine. All of those teams starting with the letter A. The only one not there is the AlphaTauri. Luckily in F124 we don't have 4 teams that start with the letter A. It's just the 2. It's the AlphaTauri rebranding itself to RB. And the Sauber Alfa Romeo contract coming to an end. Team being rebranded the Kick team. The Kick Sauber. Of course, the initial agreement with Audi and Sauber was that 75% of that team would be bought until 2026, where they would take full ownership. But in January they did buy the entire team, so Audi already in control of that team. We're all waiting for 2026 to see the debut of Audi. at the front. Couldn't get any better for Alfa Romeo. They're P1, they're P2, they're second in the constructors. And their nearest competitor, the Alpines, they're down in P4 and P10. Panda, welcome to the comment section. Levy leads the way, 0 to cool in P2. That's exactly what Levy wants. He wants to be leading, and then just to have that teammate behind him just gives him that extra peace of mind. There's someone between him and his rivals in the championship. Obviously his biggest rival in the championship was this Alpine. But he'll be waiting, he'll be hoping for another safety car. Let's have a look at these skies. We saw some clouds at the start of the race. There's still some clouds hanging about, but nothing looking too threatening at the time. But if conditions do become suddenly overcast, things could change very, very quickly. Of course, we've already seen the wet compound and the intermediate compound this evening. Both were needed in qualifying. First laps the guys got on the slick tyre. We're in the race. We're approaching now lap 12, and that means half the race was done under safety car, because the first 6 laps were done under safety car. The Haas all over back of Quibus. The Aston Martin coming under serious pressure from the Haas, trying to hold on to that P4 position for as long as he can. And I wonder if it's just his battery. I think that's what it is. Quibus has just used too much of that battery. Now he's got no defenses left, and Kev will come back at him with DRS, and it should be a pretty easy move. Alfa Romeo still 1-2, those cars relatively close together, separated by half a second. Then Arno Koos, P3, not far behind either. Quibus still defending from Kev. Saw Kev all the way up in P2 at a stage. So all of these drivers in the top 10 incredibly quick. Lots of action in the midfield. Alpine sandwiched between 2 Williams drivers. Boinky's P9, Zubair P7. The man trying to recover his championship hopes in P8. Now he'll be watching this in front of him, and he'll see, okay, mistake, that's what he needed. Doesn't need to pass the Williams. Williams runs wide, and Nick Gishen takes advantage up into P7, and he's not far away from the Ferrari ahead of him. He'll be looking at P6 in the near future. At the front, still the 2 Alfa Romeos. The Alpine of Arno Koos applying all the pressure that he can. He knows that at the moment his teammate's having a recovery drive. He needs to do the job. He needs to put the Alfa Romeos under pressure. Possibly force a mistake from one of them. Absolute worst case scenario for Alpine, for the 1-2 for Alfa Romeo. See how close that Constructors' Championship still is. Still so much to play for. Quibus now gets overtaken. Kev goes up into P3. I have one of the Alfa Romeos in the pits. It's the championship leader. He's actually just left his grid spot, his garage spot. The problem for him is all those safety cars at the start of the race. These gaps should be so much bigger at this point. So what happens is when you come into the pits, instead of losing 3 or 4 positions, you suddenly find yourself at the rear of the field. Levy went from P1 to P12 as a result of that pit stop. Of course, all the cars in front of him still need to pit. Nick Ischen in a slightly different boat because he pit under safety car and put on a set of hards. So I don't know when he's going to pit or if he's going to pit. Nick Ischen in P5, he did get past Nam Assassin, and his next target up the road will be Kev on aging softs. Kev will have to come into the pits shortly. That will promote Nick up into P4. Then we'll suddenly have two Alpines in the top 4. It's all Alfa Romeo not so long ago. Zero to cool. Trying to hold on to that lead. Of course, he'll be doing his teammate a big favor, holding Arno Goos back. But he's not going to be able to do it for much longer. Arno Goos takes over at the lead of the race. Easily done before they arrived at turn 1. And Zero to Cool now finds himself in P2 again, but this time not to his teammate, to one of his main rivals in the championship. This is the driver in P3, currently second in the championship. My mic is just cutting off for reasons unknown to me. Hopefully it'll stop. Arno Goos at the lead of the race, Zero to Cool P2. His teammates already come into the pits, so I wonder if we're going to see him responding now on this lap. I think he was trying to stay out as long as possible, help his teammate hold that Alpine back. Now what will these drivers do? Will they peel into the pits as a reaction to Levy? No, they don't. They stay out on track. Zero to Cool, 14 laps on those medium tyres. But remember, all of these tyres should go deeper into the race than we expect because of all the safety car laps we had at the start of the race. 6 of them. Get our first racing lap. We had to get to lap 7. In the early stages of that tyre's life, the tyre wasn't doing much. I was going to be able to go 2 or 3 laps deeper into this race than they would have initially expected. Nam Assassin, P4, also having a pretty solid race. Does have a penalty next to his name. It's a 5-second penalty for Nam Assassin, so that means he will be able to get rid of that penalty if he pits again. If he doesn't pit again, well then those 5 seconds will be added on to his race time. Position changes, well, there can only be one driver of the day by that evidence. Nick Ischen, he's made up 13 positions since the start of the race. Also welcome to JJ in the comment section. Great to have so many viewers here for the final race. I know a lot more people watch the race after the fact, get a lot more viewers after the live broadcast. 1:31.0, fastest lap on the circuit. That was Levy, and then immediately beaten by Quibus. Quibus now the fastest man on track, and that was by a big difference, 0.4 of a second between the two. This is now the evidence of the fresh tyres. And every lap these cars will get lighter, they'll get easier to drive, they'll be able to throw them into the corners a little bit more, be a little bit more aggressive. What a lot of guys do is they spend a little bit too much time doing their practice in time trial, and then when they jump into the car in lap 1, that car just feels alien to them. It's so heavy with fuel, you're not expecting it. Been doing time trial with the optimal tire temperature, with the optimal everything. These guys really do put in practice in all forms. They practice on the different compounds, they practice in the different conditions to try and cover all the formalities that you could find in a race. Of course, DRS as well as the other leagues on this channel are all under dynamic weather, so weather is not set prior to the race. You find out on the night. And we had an incredibly wet qualifying session. And as far as the weather goes, we've had a very easygoing race. I did think we'd see some more of that rain in the race, but that has not been the case. 10 laps to go. Further back, Zubair, all over the back of Stoffel, looking to get himself up into the top 5 positions. At one stage he was way behind his teammate. His teammate was having a great race, leading the race. Now he's ahead of his teammate. Boinki's in P10. It's his turn to have a recovery drive. Nick Gishen's proved it is possible. Started last, he's on the podium. So all hope is not lost. Boinkies need to keep on pushing. If a safety car comes out at the right time, you never know where you're going to find yourself. Few people watching, but less than 50% of you have liked the video, so if you're not driving, leave a like on the video. It does help out the channel. It means we get shown on more news feeds, more people are going to see our video. And it's really just as simple as a click. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, remember to do so. That means you'll get an update every time we upload. And of course, when DRS returns for season 11, you'll be the first one to know about it. Levy, he was leading the race. He was leading the race for quite some time. Then he went into the pits, came out in P11 I think it was, and now he's already made up a lot of positions. He's in P4. And who could have predicted that? Man who started at the rear of the field now leads the race. Problem for Nick at the front and Stoffel in P2 is that those are 13 lap old hards. Everybody else behind them is going to have fresher tyres, with the exception of Zubair, who's on 17 lap old mediums. I think he has just stretched those mediums as far as possible so that he can finish this race on a set of soft tyres. It would be an interesting strategy because the rest of the field haven't copied that strategy. He's actually staying out for another lap. I thought we'd see him peel in. That's not the case. Still somehow has the pace on those mediums to stay with the drivers around him. He's not falling back for now. Still in a comfortable position. Nick leads the race by 10.5 seconds. Stoffel P2. And he's soon going to start coming under pressure from Levy. Nick will look back, he'll see that gap on his screen, 10 seconds. And he'll just be hoping that Stoffel can stay in between those cars as long as possible. But Stoffel now starting to make up ground of his own. That gap was 10.5 seconds. It's now 9 seconds. I wonder if there was some sort of mistake from the Alpine, because he lost a second and a half in a very short period of time. Wonder if he just went off track slightly. Or the car just got a bit squirmish on the exit of a corner. Didn't get the traction he wanted, but definitely lost a second and a half in a matter of 2 or 3 corners. And that could have only been a mistake. Needs to get his head down. Needs to concentrate. Not a long way to go. His main competitor in the championship is in P3. And there's a 9-second buffer between them. Stoffel now into the pits. Levy has gone into the lead of the race. Quibus P2, Arno Host P3, Zero to Cool P4, then Kev P5. That's your new order. Boinkies. He led this race, started from pole, led the first restart, led the second restart. Then there was a collision in that final chicane. And Boinkies came off second best. Now he's had to do a lot of work to get back up into P6. We've got a penalty for Will. Currently outside of the points paying positions, and the penalty will just make his life a little bit more difficult. Top Gun over a minute behind. I wonder if this car is ghosting. Yes, it is. There's confirmation. Top Gun is not in control of that car. That's why the car is so slow. Simply being driven around by AI till the end of the race. Unless he were to join back. But if he did join back, he'd find himself a minute and a half behind and probably just leave immediately again. Levy leads the race, 0.2 of a second, 0.3 of a second. Quibus P2, Ariamondi P3, Zero to Cool P4. So it's not a comfortable lead. We've got a DRS train at the front of the race for the lead of the race. Zero to Cool goes fastest. Now look at that double overtake. Double overtake. Quibus goes into the lead of the race. Arno Goes goes up into P2 and Levy loses 2 positions before he can get to turn 1. And well, that was very similar to what we saw in Hockenheim. Mika Hakkinen versus Michael Schumacher versus Ricardo Zonta. Ricardo Zonta was the car getting lapped. Michael Schumacher and Mika Hakkinen fighting for the lead. They went either side of him, and Mika Hakkinen was able to pull off the overtake into the very next corner, and it became one of the highest rated overtakes in F1 history. So after the race, if you haven't seen it, go have a look. Michael Schumacher versus Mika Hakkinen versus Ricardo Zonta. One of the best overtakes you'll ever see. Quibus had a fantastic turn 1 there. They went 3 wide. He was able to come out on top, and he's been able to hold that lead since. Arno Goes P2, Zero to Cool P3. Probably be getting a little bit frustrated. He'll know Boinkies is down the road, and he'll be wanting to get on with it. Where is Nick Gishin? Nick Gishin is in P6. So Levy P4 and his 2 championship rivals in 6 and 7 at the moment. So Levy doing exactly what he needs to do. Arno Goes, Quibus and Zero to Cool. Those are your top 3. Arno Goes has taken over the control at the front. Quibus drops to P2. Quibus did have a penalty next to his name earlier on. I think that penalty is gone as a result of a pit stop. At least I think he had a penalty next to his name. Nick Gishin in P6, he's got a penalty. He had a 5-second penalty at the start of the race that he got rid of in the pits. But it seems like he's added another penalty. It's a 3-second penalty. 2 drivers with a 3-second penalty at the moment. That's Will and Nick. Those are penalties that unfortunately cannot be served in the pit lane. They can only be added on at the end of the race. And Zero to Cool now takes charge at the front of the race. Everybody's having a go. The Alpine's coming back. Arno Goes not the best place to try and pull that off. He thinks better of it. Zero to Cool will lead the way. Quibus P2 Don't think we're going to see anything insane like we saw on the last lap. This time the gap a little bit too big. We may see the Alpine going for a move, and he does. But the oh wow, there's way too many teams starting with the A. That's the Aston Martin in P2, not letting up, not letting the Alpine go by. News out of Alpine is that Renault could pull funding from the team. At least partial funding from the team. So the team may find itself in a space in the future where it's no longer a manufacturer team. It'll just be Alpine in name. And in every other way it'll be a customer team. Sort of like the Aston Martin. It's called Aston Martin. But Aston Martin doesn't make a single piece for that car. It's an Aston Martin only in its naming rights, as was with the Alfa Romeo. Zero to Cool leads the way. Quibus P2. Arno Host P3. Zero to Cool is in a great position in this race, leading in the closing stages, and I can tell you, I didn't want to mention it because I thought I was going to jinx it, but I can tell you we're now in the, well, what I call the safe zone. I call it the safe zone because it's the last 3 laps of the race, and it means we can't have another safety car. Of course, you could still have a virtual safety car, but in terms of full safety car, we're done for the evening. Safety car will have no further impact on the result of this race. Zero to Cool looks like he's got the pace at the end here. Arno Host P2, Quibus P3. And what's interesting was the 3 drivers at the very top of the championship. Well, none of them are on the podium. Levy P4, Nick Geshen P5, and Boinkies P7. I'm not going to be able to do the maths on this, but let's just have a look at that Drivers' Championship. Obviously the top 3 we just mentioned, none of them are on the podium. Then Bigfoot Joe is not here this evening. Zero to Cool, I think that's going to be a bit too much of a stretch. So both on 65 points. Panda also not here tonight, so just Quibus. Quibus in P3. Don't think it's going to be enough to take the championship. All Levy needs to do is stay where he is. If he were to make a mistake in the closing stages and retire though, everything gets blown wide open. Why is Panda not on circuit? I'm not quite sure. Panda, why are you not on circuit? Aren't you supposed to be in the race car? We see you there in the Drivers' Championship, but we don't see you on the racetrack. This is Arno Host in P2, Quibus in P3. Not long to go in this race. Levy is in P4, and I don't think he's going to settle for 4th place. He's going to have a go at it. He wants to finish on the podium. It looks like he's going to win the championship. So Marley's just asking how the battery works. So basically what happens is, if you look there at the center of your screen where you see all the data, you can see what gear he's in, 4, 5, there we go, just above that, the yellow number. As you can see, the car we're currently filming is on 14%. What happens is that battery at the start of the race, it's on 100%. You're able to use it to get past your competitors, have a little bit of an extra boost, but the battery does deplete, and then the only way for you to charge that battery up is by getting on the brakes. So it is quite difficult to recharge that battery. Something you'll know from F124 if you've played it, or if at least you've watched the stream on it, is that it's much easier to recharge that battery now, and it allows the drivers to attack so much more because they're not worried about maintaining that battery. Letting the battery run too low, you're going to give yourself a very difficult time. Thanks, Panda. You're just giving a better and more brief explanation. So lap 27 of 27. This is the final lap of the race. Zero2Cool leads by quite a margin. Then we have Arno Huis in P2, also looks pretty comfortable. Lebby has just gone up into P3, so he has gotten up onto the podiums. Onto the podium positions. Your championship leader, Quibus P4, Nick Gishin in P5, then Kev P6 and Boinkies, who at one stage he would have been thinking about that championship. Would have been in the back of his mind. But now in P7, it's just really not much more he can do. Going a little further back to see if there are any battles. Lebby, Nick Gishin fighting for third place. They'd be much happier fighting for the lead. That's P1 and 2 in the championship. It looks like they're going to finish P3 and 4 in the race. I think we've had a late retirement. Yes, that is a late retirement. Luckily no safety car at this stage, but a DNF for Will. He's not going to be able to finish this race. And there we have the checkered flag. Zero2Cool, Arno Huis, Lebby P3, so he was able to get it on the podium in the end. Quibus P4, Nick Gishin P5, Boinkies, Kev, and then we're waiting. Stoffel, there he is. Where is Ariamondi? Comes over the line to pick up 2 points for 9th place, and Zubair picks up the final point on the evening of our Season 10 finale. I might mute it at the wrong time. Sorry about that. I had read out the entire results for no reason. So Zero School takes the lead, takes the win. Arno goes P2, then Levy P3. Oh wow, now I can hear myself. That's not good. Don't want to hear myself on the stream. Zero to Cool, Arno goes Levy, Quibus, Nickish and Boinkies, Kev, Stoffel, Ariel Bondi and Zubair making up the top 10. Then Cowboy finishing outside the top 10 in P11. Then we had DNFs from Will, Top Gun, and Nam Assassin. As a result of me muting it the first time round, I had to get through that very quickly on the second attempt. So now we are just going to wait and see if anybody does want to, in fact, join for a short interview. Of course, the top 3 drivers in the race and the driver of the day are invited to the comms box. And we'll just give it 2 or 3 minutes to see if anybody feels like joining. Sometimes the guys are just mic shy. They're not too keen on it. Or sometimes the race just hasn't gone according to their plans and they're just not keen on it. So we'll give it a few minutes to see what happens. But in the meantime, what a season it's been. DRS season 10. Obviously the season was going to be a bit longer. I think initially it was 12 rounds. But as a result of the F124 game coming out when it did, the season was shortened to 8 rounds, meaning today was the finale. Next time you see DRS on your screens, it's going to be for season 11. Of course, when I do have confirmed information on when that date will be, and maybe even what that calendar will look like, that will all be broadcast to you on this channel during its various other streams. And while DRS is away, waiting for season 11 to return, remember we do broadcast another 3 races during the week: SAFRL Tier 1, Tier 2 and SKR on a Sunday. But DRS will return on Thursday nights after a short break. Of course, if you're trying to join the cooldown room, you can also do so from your PlayStation. The Discord feature that has been added to PlayStation, you can just go to your party chat screen and look there on your left hand side. You'll see a Discord logo and then you can join the cooldown room from there. I'm going to give it another minute or two. Doesn't seem like anybody is too keen on joining this evening. Of course, if you're still with us, if you're still watching, please remember, leave a like on the video. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. That way you'll know when we come back for season 11, and you'll also get to see the other great racing that's on this channel. Obviously we upload 4 times a week, and I assure you, all 4 of those races have a quality field. Let's just go have a look one more time. There's still no one in the cool down room, so the guys didn't make it to the cool down room. They obviously got distracted along the way. So I think I'm going to call it a night. I'm not going to sit here and wait for another 10 minutes and nobody joins. Then you have to listen to me ramble forever. So I'm going to call it a night. I want to thank you on behalf of, well, NFR, myself. Thank you, DRS, for a great season, great racing. And I look forward to broadcasting DRS Season 11. And until then, cheers.